共敬安乐本为此法为境界共生。金砖妙法轮教导我们如何了生活是离不得速者无生。有了三大virtue, all the compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Wisdom is wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to live suffering and accomplish an person and quickly realize numbers.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchedo ye alahadi samyao sampatoshe. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛。Venerable Master, Dhamma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. My name is Heng. It is Sunday, April 14th here in Queensland. It is Saturday night, April 13th, back in California. Glad you're with us. We're going to be exploring the Flower Garland Sutras, Entering the Dharma Realm, chapter number 39, called the Gandavyuha. This is the exciting epic story. It's really an epic poetry of a Buddhist pilgrim who goes on to become a Buddha in a single lifetime. So I hope that's what you're here to listen to, because that's what we're going to be doing. Please join. Let's invoke spiritual presence to get going here. And let's see here. Okay. Turn on original sound. Thank you for the reminder. You bet. One more time. We would like to respectfully acknowledge the Kombu-Meri people of the Ugambe language region as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where our monastery is located. We pay respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 我们恭敬地承认冈贝语族的贡布马里人是我们寺院所在地的叙事和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从没有放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。You ready to join me in the bell song? Remember the lyrics? Here we go. Bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000界内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报他诺厚德。Alrighty, here we go. Yeah, well, we've got our. We had some startup issues with our projector. And overall, we've been pretty lucky here with our Buddha Hall setup at Gold Coast Dharma Realm. I remember back when we were first getting our system online, we faced every possible gremlin. That was some epic days of everything from the wind blowing down trees that then took our single broadband line down with them suddenly, and then broadcasting along and having, right in the dramatic moment at the end of the lecture, the network just quits, done, you're done, not knowing why. So we've had and new additions to the hardware. We've now got our system down. I've got a beautiful soft box light illuminating my shiny forehead. And I've got set up so that everybody in the room can hear loudly. And at the same time, the sound goes out to Zoom and to YouTube via Fremont, California. And boy, oh boy, who would imagine that such a thing was possible? Now, at the same time, here in the room, in the Buddha Hall at Gold Coast Dharma Realm, we have a live translation into Mandarin via individual headphone sets that works really well, thanks to kind-hearted volunteers who are translating my words in English into Chinese so that friends can listen. And invisibly to the folks here, we also have a Vietnamese translator who is sitting somewhere in California, transmitting out to the 30-some friends who listen to what I'm saying in Vietnamese, week after week after week. So a lot of hands and a lot of hearts are involved in making this lecture go out. And gee whiz, I think that is really that's the spirit. I'm going to, as we get going, I have to constantly remind myself that my description of what's going on in the sutra, I'm looking at the sutra like all of you, and it's talking to me in a language, in a Buddhist language that I use every day. It's a terminology, it's a way of looking at the world that I really do take for granted. I just assume kind of everybody's with me, and I hope that is the case. But then every now and then, I have a conversation with a good Dharma friend here, and I realize listening to the questions that they ask, that I'm way out on cloud nine, leaving people behind as I try to explain what I think is happening here. So it's really good for me to slow down and go back and take some of the basic ideas and say them in accessible words. I'm thinking particularly about the word transference or dedication. And that's one that I want to, today we're going to spend some time with that word because it's so essential to what we're all about. Now, okay. Gee, I wish I brought some pictures today. So you'll have to come on this side of the computer and look. So, let me share my screen here. And first of all, before I do that, we'll do the text. We'll get the text going. And before we do, let me say again, gratitude to all those friends who take time out of their lives to help me do what's called turning the Dharma wheel. Turning the Dharma wheel. 转大法轮. This is a traditional way of talking about a lecture. And in this lecture, we open up these old books and talk about them. We're telling old stories, ancient stories. And this is water that I swim in, just personally. I have ever since I started listening to Master Hsuan Hua. I had no idea that I would be interested in old Buddhist books, but I did, but I am. And so in order to convey my enthusiasm, to kind of infect you with the virus of my love for ancient Chinese Buddhist books, we've got to make it lively, got to make it come alive. And so we're using all these different expedient means. So those of you, some of us here in the room can't see my desktop, but we've got a picture of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Pushen Pusa. He's also up there on the altar, by the way. One of those bodhisattvas is Samantabhadra up there. And you can tell him because he's usually got a book in his hands. Often he's seen carrying a book, carrying a sutra text. And if you had to say, what is Samantabhadra's role? We've been over this before. He's got a lot of jobs. He is the master of samadhi, which is to say he's the best meditator. This is the boss meditator. He's the guy who can help you learn to improve your meditation. Pushen Pusa. That's one job. What else? He's also the confessor. He's the one who, when you goof up and you really want to unburden, you want to clear out your conscience, you go to Pushen Pusa and tell him what's on your mind. Tell him what's on your heart. Pushen Pusa, Samantabhadra, listens, and he goes, it's okay, it's all right. Try again, try harder, you'll be fine. Just keep on the big broad road. Don't wander off onto the side road, and you'll be fine. That's his job. He's the one who says that. And you feel, after talking to him, lighter, cleaner, more connected, like you really can start over. Try your best. That's another job. So, master meditator, confessor bodhisattva. What else is he? He is Manjushri Bodhisattva's best friend. He's the one who, together with the other bodhisattva up here behind me on the altar, everybody see? Here we are, that one, and that one, right? One is Pushen, one is Wanshu. He is Manjushri Bodhisattva's partner, along with Vairochana Buddha. They are what's called the three sages of the Avatamsaka, Huayan Sanshan. So he's got that job. And so there we go. Yes, indeed. All right, first class. So he appears on an elephant. It's interesting. Samantabhadra rides on an elephant. And this elephant really has a story. There's a story about this elephant. Close you, bring you up. There we go. Here is an old vision of Samantabhadra's elephant in Japan. A very interesting Japanese illustration of Samantabhadra's elephant. Well, I'll have to, those of you who can't see it here, I'll share these with you later. The elephant turns out, here, just look this one, nice and big. Here's the elephant. The elephant is walking on lotuses. He's got lotuses under his feet. He's got 6 tusks, 3 on this side, 3 on that side. And look at what he's got on his head. He's got a special headdress with a lotus. He's holding a lotus in his trunk. The word is caparisoned, C-A-P-I-R-A-S-O, caparisoned. He's arrayed with beautiful silks and saddles. He's got his handler. These are the handlers down here, keeping him on the path and all. Because look at who's riding him. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. There he is, with his palms together, his legs in royal ease posture. Oh, Samantabhadra is said to be the most zhuangyan, the most adorned of bodhisattvas. In ordinary language, you say the most beautiful. He's just outstandingly spectacular. Why? Because of all the practices that he does. We know him as Da Heng Pu Xian Wang Pusa, the bodhisattva with the best practices. Now, here's, you can see the tusks here. Here's our elephant. Now, the result of lots of practice is your body is just spectacular. So the guobao appears in his physical form, just how fine he is. How do we know this is true? Because when you recite this chapter in the Avatamsaka, chapter 40, talks about his 10 vows, and then it comes and it says, if you cultivate Samantabhadra's practices and vows really well, in the future, you can have a body just like his. Look at this image of Samantabhadra. There's his sutra book. He's got an aura like a full moon. Check out his elephant. This is a very mellow elephant. Here, under the moonlight, there's Samantabhadra. Ooh. So it says, in the future, you can have a body just like his, just as perfect, if you cultivate his practices and vows. That's one of the promises. The li yi bu fen, so shou yi, I guess they call it, the benefits that you get from cultivating his way. Here he is. In this case, he's not riding his elephant in this image. So Samantabhadra, so interesting that he is the least known of all the great bodhisattvas. But here in the Avatamsaka Sutra, he comes up over and over and over. He is the librarian of the library of how to cultivate. All the different methods, 84,000 Dharma doors, they say. You can see the elephant with his tusks here. He knows how. You want to know how to cultivate? Sudhana gets 52 pieces of advice. And number 53 is Samantabhadra himself. And Samantabhadra says, I got 10. I'll give you 10 methods. Cultivate according to those, you'll become a Buddha straight away. Here we are. Pu Shen Pusa. Here's the last one. Aren't these wonderful images, though? Now, that's a lion. That's Manjushri. So I need to label that one. So he's in there with Samantabhadra. Okay, now, this is our Bodhisattva. And the person we're going to hear from today is who? Manjushri. We're going to hear from Manjushri, but he's praising Samantabhadra. That's what's so interesting. So the two of them are clearly great Dharma friends. Last week, here's where we got last week. We heard from this young man called Sudhana. He said, please save me a seat inside the Mahayana. I want to ride that car. And so Manjushri heard the instructions, heard the enthusiasm from the young man. Yes, 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 please teach me how to be a bodhisattva. And so now we have Manjushri singing back to him. Okay. The greatly wise bodhisattva, Manjushri, is now chanting back at the young man. And what's the purpose of this? He is starting this young guy out on his pilgrimage, on his journey. He's just kind of charging his battery, you could say. Everybody drives electric cars now. He's getting a charge that will carry him all the way to Buddhahood. And so you know that every word counts. Every word that he gives Sudhana is a push, is a kind of a hug at the same time, giving him everything he needs to succeed. So what does he say? He says, 尔时文殊师利菩萨为善财童子而说颂言 善哉功德藏，能来知我所，发起大悲心，勤修无上觉，以发光大愿，除灭众生苦，普为诸世间修行菩萨行。若有诸菩萨不言生死苦，此具普贤道，一切无能坏。复光复威力，复出复境海，如为诸众生，愿修普贤行。And he says, 如见无边际，十方一切佛，皆悉听闻法，受持不忘失。如于十方界普见无量佛，成就诸愿海，具足菩萨行。若如方便海，安住佛菩提，能随导师学，当成一切智。如遍一切刹，微尘当诸界，修行普贤行，成就菩提道。Okay, two more. 修行普贤行，成满 Let's see here. 如于无量刹，无边诸界海，修行普贤行，成满诸大愿。此无量众生闻如愿欢喜，发菩法切发菩提意，愿修普贤成。Okay, that's what he says. Now, to get the flavor of it, I thought it might help to just put a little music behind it in English. But most of all, I want to put the context, which is Manjushri has come a long way from where he would probably rather be, which is contemplating vast universes, kind of comfortably at the controls of his wisdom observatory. That's, looking out at the world. He has left that. He's come down into the dusty, dirty, messy world of humans because there's a young man whose time has come. There's a young man here whose, the Buddhist language is his potentials are ripe, right? There's Buddhist jargon for you. His potentials are ripe to be able to absorb the teachings that he hears, put them into practice, and keep going, not quit. Keep going, keep going. Learning, absorbing, moving on. A large part of what Sudhana does is say goodbye to 50 plus times. He meets these new teachers, he absorbs their knowledge, and then, I gotta go. You're the one who sent me on. They send him on. That's a big part of his job. But if Manjushri does this, if he puts in the effort and the discomfort and the 不方便, right, the inconvenience of coming down to teach, he can get Sudhana across the goal line, all the way back to Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, who will initiate Sudhana into the next phase. Manjushri is initiating Sudhana right here, make no mistake. He is starting him out. This is the inauguration of Sudhana's pilgrimage. But when he gets to the end, I don't know if we'll all be alive when we finally get past 51 teachers. But in any case, at that point, when Sudhana meets Samantabhadra at the very end, he really does say, okay, now you can go out and teach. Yes, congratulations, you're a Buddha, go to work. That's the funny, I always get that feeling when I read chapter 40, is Sudhana is like, wow, I made it, finally, the last step of my difficult pilgrimage. And what does Samantabhadra do? He says, okay, now you're ready to go out and really teach. It's like, the work's not done? Oh, I guess the answer would be, well, are living beings still suffering? If so, go to work, right? We're looking at the non-singable version. We want the singable version. Well done, treasury of excellent virtue. You have arrived at my place with a heart of great compassion. You seek supreme awakening. You have made vast great vows to end living beings' pain for the sake of all beings in the world, to cultivate a bodhisattva practices. If there are any bodhisattvas who do not fear the pain of birth and death, they will live into Samantabhadra's path. Nothing will harm them. With the light of blessings and their power as a source of blessings, an ocean of pure blessings for all beings' sake you vow to cultivate Samantabhadra's practices. You will see the Buddhas without limit, the 10 directions round. From each of them you will hear Dharma, receive and hold it, forgetting not a word. You will see the Buddhas beyond measure in all 10 directions realms. You will accomplish an ocean of vows, be replete with bodhisattva practices. As you enter the ocean of skillful means, serene amid the Buddha's Bodhi, following guides and teachers and learning, you will accomplish omniscience. Pervading all eons, in number like dust, particles in every land, you will practice Samantabhadra's conduct and master the Bodhi path. Through kshetras beyond measure, in boundless oceans of eons, you will practice Samantabhadra's practices and make perfect his great vows. Do I sound like Manjushri? What do you think? All the infinite beings here, having heard of your vows, will all bring forth the Bodhi mind and vow to learn Samantabhadra's way. Is that the way Manjushri would do it? Maybe not. Maybe not. But what I hear here, when you try to fit it into a musical phrase, different emphases come out, right? And what I see as I went through this was 10 verses, and number 3 mentions Samantabhadra's path. Number 4 says Samantabhadra's practices. Number 8 says Samantabhadra's conduct. Number 9 says Samantabhadra's practices. And number 10 says Samantabhadra's way, or vehicle, or car, his conveyance. So 5 out of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 5 times Manjushri is talking about Samantabhadra, which I think is neat. One of the issues here to pay attention to is the lack of jealousy, the lack of competition. Instead, it's collegial cooperation, collaboration. The bodhisattvas work with each other. Their vows complement each other. They all agree on one point in particular, that having learned the Dharma and practiced it to the place where they are free, now free of time and space, they want to bring everybody else to that place too. That's where they agree. They really want everybody to wake up because it's the best. it's the best to wake up. And better than being rich, better than being drunk, or to win the lottery, or to score at the blackjack table, at the casino, better than a new car, better than ice cream, even better than ice cream, is to be free of suffering and to be able to say, as the Chan school says, Lai Ming Qu Bai, clear about where you come from and know where you're going. So that's the promise here. And it's so funny because I teach a meditation class once a week, and there are some very hardworking people there who take their meditation very seriously, and yet every time I talk out of the Chan school, like, we're here to end birth and death, I hear those words kind of go, doo, clunk, out the window. People go, yeah, that sounds really good, Dharma Master. What? You want to end birth? I came to meditate. I want to learn how to calm my mind, and you're talking about ending birth and death? Is that something I'm supposed to want too? What does that mean? So, yeah, and yet, if it weren't for let's say, Master Hua, if it weren't for our teacher bringing that perspective into our lives, who would talk that way? Who would say, that really is what this whole meditation thing promises, doesn't it? And you can make your mind calm. You can have a very rich lifestyle. You can have yoga is good, dieting is good, fasting once a week, cutting out tobacco and alcohol is really good for you. Those are all good addendas to your lifestyle. Meditation is about more than just that. About more than that. It's not a hobby. It can be a really good hobby, but hobbies are something, take it or leave it. It's an option. If we follow the Dharma, and here is Manjushri telling Sudhana, he's saying, you're going to, because of what you're doing, people are going to make the Bodhi resolve. You're going to show them how to accomplish Samantabhadra's practices. That's the Bodhisattva path. So there you go. That's the other perspective on meditation that we want to keep alive. We want to keep it in people's vision. That's really the purpose of this. My Dharma brother, Heng Lai, he loves to drop this bomb on Dharma talks. People will be going on talking about, merit and virtue and blessings and wisdom. And he'll say, yeah, well, Shifu came here for one reason. He wants to make us Buddhas. He wants to make Buddhas out of all of us. Did you forget that part? He said, it was like, no, that sounds good. Sign me up. So it's true. Master Hua said, I didn't come to make Buddhas out of plaster or wood, or sculpt them, or cast them out of porcelain, or make them out of bronze. I came to make Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Arhats and sages out of flesh and blood. You pointed. So, boy, that's a tall order, knowing where he started, a bunch of mangy hippies in the Mission District in San Francisco. So here's Manjushri Bodhisattva saying to Sudhana, this brilliant kid, when this kid came into the world, everything in his house was full of, all the containers in his house were full of treasures. That's called blessings. He brought with him all this amazing worldly benefit, and yet he didn't want any of it. He was not there counting out how many pearls, how many diamonds, how many rubies, how much gold. That was not what he was about. He came to the park to hear Manjushri speak Dharma, and then he said, hey, will you save me a seat in that car? I want to ride in that car. And here is Manjushri. What does he say to him? He says, okay, he says, "Well done, treasury of excellent virtue. You've arrived at my place. You got great compassion. You want to wake up. Good. You made vast, great vows to end being's pain for the sake of everybody in the world to cultivate bodhisattva's practices. Good for you." That is up to Manjushri's standards. That's where he says, yeah, I approve this. My name is Manjushri and I approve of this message. He says, if there are bodhisattvas who are not afraid of being reborn, of dying and being reborn, they will live into, that's the word we translated. What was the Chinese? They will live into, he said embody. 具子具普仙道. They will perfect, make full and complete Samantabhadra's practices, he says, and nothing will harm them. That's the first time in his singing that he mentions Samantabhadra. Second time is, he says, blessings 4 times. The light of blessings, the power of blessings, the source of blessings, an ocean of pure blessings. You, Sudhana, young man, he says, I see you. I see you, young man. I know what you're about. You've got those blessings. You are shan cai, good and wealthy. For all being's sake, you vow to cultivate Samantabhadra's practices. There it is, right up front. Then he gives him a prediction. You'll see the Buddhas, no limit, on all sides. You'll hear the Dharma from all of them, and you won't forget a single word of it. Now, I want to stop there for just a minute. This issue of memory. Let's talk about memory here. We've people who look at culture and evolution of young people are concerned about our attention span. I was already a monk when MTV came out. And MTV back was music videos. I was a monk and I never saw a single episode of MTV. But for the first time, here were, Eric Clapton, and here was the Beatles. I guess the Beatles weren't part of MTV. Here were the Stones. Did the Stones ever appear on MTV? Maybe, who was it? Tom Petty, let's say, was on MTV. And the presentation of these rock and roll musicians was done with a whole new approach to video, which was quick cuts. The camera would focus in, and then it would cut away, and the camera would move, and it would spin, and that clip would be there for 3 seconds or 4 seconds, and the camera never stopped its focus. It was just clip, cut, clip, clip, cut, like that. Somebody said, "Oh, have you seen, who was it? Eric Clapton played Unplugged." Here was Eric Clapton playing an acoustic guitar instead of an electric guitar. They said, "You want to see Eric Clapton play an acoustic guitar?" I said, "Yeah, let me see." And I watched about 10 seconds. And in that 10 seconds, the camera frame had moved 3 times, and I realized I had a headache. I couldn't watch the quick duration and the change. My brain hurt trying to follow the clip, clip, slip, clip pace of the new thing. And I mentioned it, and they said, no, that's MTV. That's the specialty of MTV. Why? Because young people ask for faster clips. They can't hold a slower focus in mind. They need to clip it. So I was the first television generation, and ABC, NBC, CBS, 3 networks, they would you had 3 choices of programs, 1 per network at one given time. Not like cable where you have 100 channels. There were 3 choices on television, a little black and white TV, this big, 10-inch screen. And the cameras had steady focus. like this for an interview. The camera didn't move. You were just there watching the interviewee, watching the story unfold. Here's MTV, clip, 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 snip, snip, snip. Okay. That is all to say, memory has changed. Our attention span is different than it used to be. And the question is, did the medium make children that way, or were children somehow organically changing and therefore the medium followed them? Is that how it worked? So here we are now in a time of memory. What does Manjushri say? He says, you will see the Buddhas without limit, 10 directions round. From each of them, you will hear the Dharma. You will receive it, you'll hold it, you will forget not a word. He says, you will forget not a word. How about that? Could we do that these days? Where do we get a chance to exercise our memory? If our memory is like muscles, where do we get a chance to strengthen our memory muscles? I have a pianist friend, a musician, who is telling me that the standard for piano, solo classical piano, is you play from memory. You do not have a music, the score on your piano top with somebody turning the pages. It's memorized. That is the standard. Except recently, standards have fallen, and now classical pianists are playing with music and a turner, page turner. They are no longer memorizing Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto, Rock 3. It has to be done from memory because it's super fast, But now, what do? An iPad, and you tap the iPad. So you have an electronic score on your wrist, and you hit the iPad. Unless you hit the wrong button, then it goes backwards, and then you stop the orchestra until you get your iPad back. So look at Manjushri Bodhisattva giving Sudhana a prediction. You will see the Buddhas without limit, the 10 directions round. From each of them, you will hear the Dharma, receive and uphold it, forgetting not a word. Could we do that now? Could we do it? I wonder. So I've told everybody my favorite memory story, right? There it is. My favorite memory story came in Vancouver at Gold Buddha Monastery. It was 1985, and Master Hua had flown up from San Francisco to Gold Buddha for the weekend. And it was a Saturday afternoon, and he had given his afternoon lecture, and he was in between evening lecture. He's going to come back. And this was our chance to, sit in our teacher's light. So he was sitting the way Gold Buddha was laid out back then. It was the old Salvation Army building on East Hastings Street. And we had a big, big image of Weito Pusa, who is right behind me over here. Weito Pusa. There is Weito Pusa. And Dharma Protector, Hu Fa, Weito, Sun Tian Pusa. And there was a sofa underneath Weito Pusa. Master Hua was sitting on the sofa, leaning back, kind of at his ease like that. And somehow, I forget why, but somebody mentioned Zheng Dao Ge. I think Shifu had quoted a verse from Yong Jia Da Shi Zheng Dao Ge, Song of Enlightenment, in his lecture. And somebody said, Shifu, where was that from? And he said, Zheng Dao Ge, you don't know that? I said, no, Shifu, we never heard of it before. He said, He said, who's got a copy here in the monastery? So we said, I can find a copy. So I ran to the library and came up with a Chinese copy. And I handed it to him, and he threw it back at me. He says, I don't need the book. He says, you read the book. So I opened it up. Luckily, I had my Walkman. I had a Walkman portable tape recorder, and I had a fresh tape. And I put the tape in, hit the button, and Shifu went, 君不见觉晓无为先道人，不去妄想不求真，无名实性即佛性，幻化空生即法身。 Oh, it's the, here. You can hear it, they can hear it on the, I've got, maybe I shouldn't do this. I want to blow up my computer. I've got, you have to take it from me. You have to do my version of Shifu's version. So, 幻化空生即法身，法身照了无一物，本愿自性天真佛。无因复因空去来，三毒水泡须驱魔。正实相无人法，刹那灭却而彼呀。绕将万物黄众生，自八假设成自道八舍成沙界。And he recited. 15 minutes later, he was done. He recited for 15 minutes, straight through 64 verses of the Song of Enlightenment, while we, who were holding the book in our hands, were just gobsmacked. And he finished, he said, "Ha, 可把我累坏了," he said. "You're going to fatigue me to death. You're going to tire me out." But we saw a feat of memory. And not only was he memorizing it, but he was delighted by the chance to recite the Song of Enlightenment in front of his Canadian and American disciples. And he knew that we had probably never heard anybody memorize anything that takes 15 minutes. Now, the Shurangama mantra, if you go slowly, takes 15 minutes, but for a poem, a song, Zheng Dao Ge, the Song of Awakening, Awakening to the Tao, that was a key for me. And from that time, I think it was for Shifu too, at that point, he really started to emphasize. He said, all of you, he said, don't you know, they talk about the Dharma ending age, 末法时代. And he says, what happens in the 末法时代? What happens in that time? Well, they say that the pages of the sutras by themselves go blank. So you had a sutra with black words on white paper, you open it up the next day and it's white paper. He says that's just one of the features, or there's no new printing. The printing presses no longer function. Now, we didn't have this referent. There was no such thing as cloud computing back then. But what if it's not so much paper books that go blank, but there is a sunspot and all of the sutras that are now on computers in the cloud get zapped by an electrical glitch in the matrix? What if that's what happens? So Master Hua said, you know what's real? He said, memorize the sutras. Put them down into your belly, he said. 要背到你肚子里边去了. Put them down in your belly, and then no one can take them from you. He said, you will have them on through the Dharma ending age. They are yours at that point. And he said, just like me, he said that Song of Enlightenment, that's nothing. He said, when I was a young man, I memorized 11 Chinese medicine texts, word for word. And he said, I knew about heart disease. I knew about all about, I knew about the nervous system. I knew about the muscles and all of the herbs. Yao Xing Fu. He said, I knew which herbs would cure which disease. And we knew he did. And then occasionally, Shifu would find a scholar. I remember Yang Shaozun was Yang Ren, I forget Professor Yang's given name. Shifu called him Yang Shaozun, the honored one among the scholars. And Professor Yang was a translator and a poet and a scholar. I think he taught at Seton Hall or somewhere. Anyway, the two of them, he and Master Hua, would get together, and they would start to chant the Analects, the Lunyu, Confucius text, and they would just go and go and go, and kind of like kids, just remembering their favorite songs from high school or something. Then occasionally they would start talking about Sanguo Yanyi, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is their favorite novel growing up as kids, and about Zhu Yuanzhang and Cao Cao and Zhuge Liang and all of the great heroes. And we would just, suddenly we were outside this realm. They were inside this world of memory and joy in literature and language. And all we could do was marvel. So my point in telling my favorite memory story is Master Hua reciting the Song of Enlightenment to us, absolutely gobsmacked disciples, and his encouraging us at that point to go ahead and exercise our memory muscles. Even in the age of MTV, I think this is a time when, what do we have? Suppose somebody hearing this just said, I would like to learn to memorize something. What would you give them? Well, I got a suggestion. How about the Heart Sutra? We're working on the Heart Sutra now in our meditation class. Boro bolo mido shinjing guanzi dai pusa shingshan boro bolo mido shi, right? When the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing the profound prajna paramita, right? We're learning that so that when we get it down in our stomachs, when it belongs to us, we'll be able to reflect on the nature of mind, self, and the world. The Heart Sutra deconstructs everything. It deconstructs material things. It deconstructs the space around the material things. It deconstructs the observer of the things and the space around them. So the Heart Sutra is a universal solvent. It just wipes out reality and replaces it with a deeper, compassionate reality. So how incredibly wonderful. But you have to be able to put up with the illogic of the Heart Sutra. Form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself is form. You go, nah, my head's exploding. How can that be true? So, yep, welcome to the world of prajna paramita. And the first step is to learn the text, memorize the text. All right, back to our exhortation. He says, you will see the Buddhas without limit, 10 directions round. From each of them you will hear the Dharma, you'll receive it, you'll hold it, you won't forget a single word. Not only that, he says, you'll see Buddhas beyond measure in all 10 directions. You'll accomplish an ocean of vows and be replete with bodhisattva practices. As you enter the ocean of skillful means, look at that one, meaning all the different ways of teaching that he's going to learn from his 53 teachers. Serene amid the Buddha's Bodhi, not complaining about all this information. You will follow teachers, you will follow guides, you will learn from them, and you will accomplish yiqie omniscience. Great wisdom. Okay, pervading all eons, from now until the future, in number like dust particles, that many eons, you will practice Samantabhadra's conduct and master the Bodhi path. There is a prediction right there. Manjushri is giving Sudhana his prediction. Through kshetras beyond number, in boundless oceans of eons, you will practice Samantabhadra's practices and make perfect his great vows. Okay, now, does anybody have any further doubts about how important Samantabhadra is to Manjushri? Look at what he's telling him. All the infinite beings here, says Manjushri, here in the grove, right? There in the city of blessings, the grove. All the beings here, all 2,000 from your city, having heard of your vows, knowing what you're about to do, young man, will bring forth the Bodhi mind and will vow to learn Samantabhadra's Sheng, way, vehicle, car. All right. There it is, right there. So, as I mentioned at the start, at the top, I kind of swim along in this language and the ideas of the Avatamsaka Sutra. And I know a lot of people don't want to slow me, they don't want to say, Dharma, stop, please, I don't get it. Now, in California, people think nothing of doing that. What are you talking about? Hey, slow down. They don't say, 不好意思, I don't dare slow. No, they'll say, I don't get it. That's not, you didn't say that last week, It's just a different way of interacting, I guess. So here there are a lot of folks who are very polite and wouldn't want to say, Dharma Master, you're going way over my head. Can you please slow down here? Now, let me respond. Hypothetically, somebody slowed me down. This is the peak of Nirvana mountain we're looking at. This is not beginner's Dharma. This is lofty stuff. But I think we can all get there. And one of the reasons why some of us might be feeling this is kind of out there is because what? Nobody opens the Avatamsaka. Nobody does this. We don't read this book much because the Bodhisattva path itself seems too good to be true. Too good to be true. The word in English is altruistic. It's just 100% goodness. It is the highest of hopes. Barack Obama, bless his heart, President Obama got elected the first time on a word, hope. That was his campaign. We Americans elected a skinny black man who had the name Hussein in his name, Barack Hussein Obama, as president, as our supreme leader, because we loved hearing him tell us about daring to hope for the promise of something better. He said those things, and we took it. We made him president. Hope, he said. And hope is this rare quantity in the human heart that isn't exercised enough. When people hear about the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Bodhisattva path, they say it's too good to be true. I don't believe it. It's not, maybe long ago, maybe far away. It's too good. That's altruistic. Next to Master Shenhua, you could believe it. You could believe that all of this was just waiting for us to, the language we use in the computer world is boot it up. Boot up your hardware. Boot up your software. Get that program up and running. Learn how to use it, and then you got a powerful tool. The Bodhisattva path is there on the hard drive of the human heart, waiting for people to boot it up, waiting for us to believe in it, to hope that we can aspire to being this good. Why not? Why compromise? Why settle for less than our greatest potential as humans? To my mind, the Bodhisattva path is the highest expression of humanity. If you had to boil it down to something simpler, you'd say unselfish. People who are unselfish. unselfish to the point where they will literally give you parts of their body to keep you going. This is goodness that we can use, goodness that we need. Australia was shocked yesterday, and the world around it as well, by senseless killings out of nowhere in a public shopping center in Sydney. And the country is reeling from this. There's just now the details are coming out. And sadly, in North America, not North America, in the United States of America, or not Canada, not Mexico, in America, we've become numb to sudden outbursts of fatal violence. But that reality visited here, and what everybody does is they think, wow, the last time that happened was down in Tasmania when a madman turned an automatic weapon onto school children. 30-some young people's lives were lost. And the next thing that Australia did was get a referendum and said, give us your guns, we'll take them. And they got all the guns and ran bulldozers over them in the public street and made private ownership of firearms illegal, essentially, right? More or less. Yeah, with exceptions. If you live out on a farm and you need a rifle to keep varmints away. But the number of private guns, the number of guns in private hands is very, very few. So as a result, death by firearms, this kind of mass killings in Australia pretty much just don't happen. Yesterday, the perpetrator of the violence had a knife and managed to slash people to death. So the whole country is mourning, and the world is shocked, because this news spread all over the world. So in a time like that, and then you balance that off of the reality coming out of Gaza and Palestine, where children are dying of starvation by choice. It's a choice that certain people are making to deny food to thousands of fellow human beings. And it's not a necessity that non-combatants starve to death. It's a darkness of the human soul. Then you move to Central Europe, and you see a land war happening. And with all of this destruction of human life by other humans, fellow people who get up in the morning, put shoes on, get dressed, brush their teeth, go out, and then choose to wreak fatal violence on other humans, you think, where in the human heart is there any light left? And so my answer is open the Avatamsaka Sutra and take a look at another standard that has never gone anywhere. This has been in front of our eyes for thousands of years. And yet, sadly, mostly it's in closed books that don't get opened. They don't get fingerprints on the pages. So Master Hsuan Hua, 90 minutes of every night, brought this book open. For 9 years, he said, I want everybody to listen, to look, to translate, to illustrate, to print, to publish, to distribute. Then open again in your language and use it like a mirror, use it like crutches, use it like shoes, use it like a car to move your life in that direction. Because these potentials are all inside. They're all there. They've never gone anywhere. And yet, which one do we choose to boot up off our, mixing my metaphors here, off our hard drive? Which one do we choose to feed? So the good wolf or the bad wolf, right? Which one do we feed? And when I have been doing this for many years, looking into this one particular text, and every time I do, I have to say, it just lights up my imagination and my hope, my sense of this is not going anywhere. We haven't lost this, but it's a question of what we choose to give our young people, for example. Master Hua's statement was the best defense budget, the best national defense for any country, education. In particular, educating girls, educating women. Once the givers of life and the creators of life understand that their options are infinite, and it's only public convention that keeps them suppressed, the world will move away from violence towards nurturing. And the heart of compassion opens from there, because we all came from moms, every one of us. And I don't see moms going to war. That's so interesting. Okay, we've got one more piece of text that I want to bring in front of all of us today before we quit for the week, and it's here. It's more instructions from Manjushri, because he just finished singing to Sudhana, and he's going to re-emphasize three things: the Bodhi resolve, no text. Can we do it? Okay, let's see here. Ready? He says, Bodhi resolve, find good teachers, ask them how to practice the Bodhisattva path and how to cultivate Bodhisattva practices. Here we go. 尔时闻殊舍利菩萨说此颂仪，告善财童子言：善哉善哉善男子，如一发阿耨多罗三藐三菩提心，求菩萨行。善男子，若有众生能发阿耨多罗三藐三菩提心，世事未难。能发心已，求菩萨行，倍更为难。倍更为难。At that time, Bodhisattva Manjushri, having chanted these verses, said to the youth Sudhana, good indeed, good man, you have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi and to seek the practices of a Bodhisattva. Good man, it is difficult indeed for beings to express the resolve for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Moreover, if they do express that resolve, for them further to wish to pursue the practices of a Bodhisattva is twice as difficult. All right, there we go. Now, what comes forth? What comes out of this? Well, a big long Sanskrit word for one. Everybody recognize that word? Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. What is that? That's the Buddha's enlightenment. That's the Sanskrit word for the human mind awakened to the last corner. Every bit of the mind is now awake once the Bodhi resolve is in place. There's no more doubts, no more shadow, no more fears, no more irritations, no more self, nothing that belongs to the self. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is the Buddha's unique. Other beings have Bodhi, different kinds of Bodhi. Arhats do, Bodhisattvas do, but Anuttara, Wu Shang, Zheng Deng, Zheng Jue, it says in Chinese. Wu Shang, nothing higher. Zheng Deng, right. Deng, impartial. Zheng Jue, proper awakening, is Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. He says, good job, Sudhana. He says, you, somehow the time has come here in your village you have made the Bodhi resolve, and you want to walk the Bodhisattva path. You're rare. You're a special guy. It is hard for beings to express the resolve for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. But if they do make that resolve, for them to want to pursue the practices of a Bodhisattva, twice as hard. Rare, special. Very special. All right. Now, I could stop there and leave you hanging with a negative feeling. Oh, the Bodhi resolve, Manjushri says, too hard. No thanks. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to turn to another expert, a monk whose name was Shi Xian, from the end of the Qing dynasty, in the beginning of the Minguo, the end of the Ming and the beginning of the Qing, Qingchu, Mingmo, Qingchu. And Xing'an Dashi, his name was Xing'an Dashi. He was in Hangzhou, and he liked the Avatamsaka, and he thought, this is so important, I'm going to break it down for people. So he gave a talk, which was then captured in print, and it was Quan Fa Puti Xin Wan, an essay on the exhortation to do what Samantabhadra, what Manjushri just said, Fa Anodolo Samya Sampati Shin, an exhortation to make the Bodhi resolve. And he listed 8 kinds of Bodhi resolve and 10 reasons why you'd want to do it. He said, oh no, more lists. So what were they? It's fascinating, because of the 10 reasons why you make the Bodhi resolve, 5 of them have to do with keeping in mind people who have been good to you. Half of the Bodhi resolve comes from repaying kindness. That's what he says. It's like, whoa. It's nian fu zhong en, keeping in mind the Buddha's kindness in teaching. Nian fu mu en, repaying parents for being good to you. Nian shi zhang en, the kindness of your teachers, both worldly and world transcending. Then nian shi zhu en, particularly for monks and nuns, the kindness of donors who keep your body alive and keep you moving. And then nian zhong shang en, the last one is keeping in mind the kindness of living beings who otherwise have no hope, who are just turned by anger and just hatred and the darkness of the world. So the Buddha, parents, teachers, donors, living beings' kindness, keeping them in mind, the Bodhi resolve comes up. The wish to wake up, to repay. So that's interesting, because why? That's so much closer. That's not far away. And it's human. This is a human story. The Buddha is not a God in heaven. Right? He's somebody who had many choices. He could have been the prince. He could have been the king. He was married. He could have just been a happy dad. He could have been the victorious army, the general, the king in charge of the army. None of that. Gave up his wealth, gave up his power, because he wanted to repay kindness. And that's powerful. So the job here is to bring it home, to make it reachable. It's not so far away. All righty. We've just had a rainstorm move in. I smelled the rain just a moment ago. That was quite a remarkable. Now here's falling. Powerful rainstorm. Well, next week we'll get our technical issues solved. So thank you all for sitting through this without being able to see the text. And looking forward to setting out. Before we go, let me show you what's left on our text. We've got Manjushri saying the Bodhi resolve is really hard. Then he says, you have to go find teachers. Go out and find Shanjursha, Kalyana Mitra. Then he says, south of here is a kingdom called Supreme Bliss. There's a bhikshu called Cloud of Virtue. Go ask him. Go ask him how to cultivate the Bodhisattva path, how to practice Bodhisattva practices. He'll explain it for you. Sudhana leaps for joy, bows at his feet, circles him, looks up at him, and cries. I've just met you and now have to leave? Manjushri says, south, on the road. Right? 上路了，走吧, he says. Right? 行きましょう, he says. Yep, there it is. That's the end of part 3. Then we have a brand new document. The next piece of chapter 39, entering the Dharma realm. All right. Well, so glad that all of you sat through this with me. We're going to dedicate merit now. Please make a wish. Send out your goodness wherever you would like it to go. Part of the Bodhisattva path right here. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. We'll conclude by bowing to the Buddhas, bowing to our teacher. You're welcome to bow right from where you're sitting if you care to join me. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Alrighty, it's going to do it for us for today. We'll see you all next week. Om Mani Padme. Bye, everybody.